Story 1. It was a cold and stormy night, the kind night that sent shivers down your spine. Rachel, a college student, was huddled in her cozy apartment, studying for her final exams. The room was dimly lit, and the only source of warmth and light was the flickering flames in the fireplace. She was hungry, but venturing out into the dark and rainy night didn't seem appealing. So, she decided to order a pizza. Rachel grabbed her phone and dialed the number for Pete's Pizzeria, the local pizza joint known for its late-night deliveries. A gruff voice answered, "Pete's Pizzeria, how can I help you?" "I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza for delivery, please," Rachel replied. "Sure thing, miss." "Address?" Rachel gave her address and hung up. She was relieved that she wouldn't have to brave the stormy night. As she waited for her pizza, she heard the rain pounding against her window, the wind howling through the trees outside. An hour passed, and Rachel's patience began to wear thin. She picked up her phone and called the pizzeria again. The same gruff voice answered, "Pete's Pizzeria, how can I help you?" "I ordered a pizza about an hour ago, and it still hasn't arrived," Rachel said, frustration creeping into her voice. The voice on the other end paused for a moment before replying, "Your pizza should be on its way soon." Rachel hung up and continued to wait, but as more time passed, her unease grew. Another hour went by, and there was still no sign of her pizza. She called the pizzeria once more, her voice trembling. "Where's my pizza? It's been 2 hours." The voice on the other end sounded cold and distant. "Your pizza is on its way, miss. The delivery driver will be there shortly." Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as she hung up the phone. Something didn't feel right, and the storm outside only added to her anxiety. She decided to call the pizzeria one more time to cancel the order, but this time, there was no answer. Panicked and frustrated, Rachel decided to brave the storm and go to the pizzeria herself. She grabbed her coat and headed out into the dark and rainy night. The pizzeria was only a short walk away, and she was determined to find out what had happened to her pizza. When Rachel arrived at Pete's Pizzeria, she was surprised to find the place completely deserted. The lights were on, but there was no sign of any staff or customers. The eerie silence sent chills down her spine, and she cautiously made her way to the counter. Behind the counter, she found an old dusty ledger. Flipping through its pages, she discovered that there were no recent orders listed, including hers. It was as if her order had never been placed. Confused and frightened, Rachel heard a faint noise coming from the back of the pizzeria. She cautiously made her way towards the source of the sound and discovered a small door that led to the kitchen. As she pushed it open, she was greeted by a scene straight out of a nightmare. In the dimly lit kitchen, Rachel saw a delivery driver standing over a table covered in pizza boxes. But there was something horribly wrong. The pizza boxes were filled not with pizza, but with human body parts. Rachel gasped in horror as the delivery driver turned towards her, his face contorted with a sinister grin. Before she could react, the driver lunged at her, and Rachel screamed in terror. She managed to escape the pizzeria, but the nightmare didn't end there. The driver chased her through the stormy night, his laughter echoing in the darkness. Rachel finally reached her apartment, locked the door, and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the pizzeria but found no trace of the delivery driver or the gruesome scene she had witnessed. It was as if the nightmarish kitchen had never existed. To this day, Rachel can't shake the memory of that horrifying night. She never found out who or what the delivery driver was or why he had tried to harm her. And she still can't bring herself to order pizza ever again, haunted by the chilling experience of the midnight delivery. Story 2. The night was dark and stormy, with heavy rain and gusty winds rattling the windows of Delano's Pizzeria. Inside, the pizza ovens were roaring, sending delicious aromas wafting through the air. The staff hustled to fulfill orders for the handful of customers brave enough to venture out in the tempestuous weather. Among the diners was Sarah, a young woman who had just moved to town. She had heard glowing reviews about Delano's and decided to try their pizza for the first time. Sitting at a corner table, she watched the rain cascade down the window pane as she sipped her soda, waiting eagerly for her large pepperoni pizza. As Sarah's patience waned, a sudden hush descended upon the restaurant. The chatter of diners ceased, and the staff exchanged nervous glances. A peculiar chill filled the air, causing Sarah to shiver. She looked around, wondering what had silenced the once bustling pizzeria. Then she heard it, a faint, otherworldly melody, like a hauntingly beautiful tune played on a distant piano. It sent shivers down her spine, and her heart quickened its pace. Sarah glanced at the other patrons, all of whom seemed equally unsettled by the eerie music. The source of the sound soon became apparent. A door at the back of the restaurant, usually concealed by a heavy velvet curtain, had creaked open of its own accord. A dim light seeped through the crack, revealing a long, dark corridor beyond. Sarah's eyes were drawn to a figure standing in the doorway, a tall, gaunt man in a tattered uniform, holding a tray with a single pizza box. He looked like a relic from another time, with sunken eyes that radiated an unsettling aura. The pianist's eerie melody continued as the man slowly approached Sarah's table. He placed the pizza box before her and whispered in a voice that seemed to come from the depths of the abyss, "Enjoy your meal." Sarah's trembling hands opened the pizza box, revealing a perfectly cooked pepperoni pizza. But something was amiss. The pepperoni slices were arranged in a pattern that resembled a pair of malevolent eyes staring up at her. Unable to tear her gaze away from the unsettling design, Sarah muttered a shaky thank you. The strange delivery man nodded and retreated into the dark corridor, the door closing behind him with a soft thud. As Sarah cautiously took a bite of the pizza, the room slowly returned to life. The pianist's eerie music faded, and the hushed conversations resumed. The other diners appeared to have forgotten the bizarre interruption, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her unease deepened when she noticed that the pizza box was almost bottomless. No matter how many slices she ate, the pizza remained seemingly untouched. A sense of dread gnawed at her as she continued to consume the never-ending meal. Hours passed, and Sarah's stomach ached from overeating. She felt trapped in a surreal nightmare, unable to escape the endless pizza. Desperation drove her to her feet, and she hurried toward the mysterious door at the back of the pizzeria. She pushed through the velvet curtain and entered the dimly lit corridor. The unsettling melody grew louder as she ventured further into the darkness, her footsteps echoing ominously. At the end of the corridor, she found a room bathed in an eerie blue light. There, she saw the delivery man, his back turned to her as he played the haunting tune on a dilapidated piano. His skeletal fingers danced across the keys, producing a melody that sent chills down her spine. "Who are you? What is this place?" Sarah demanded, her voice quivering. The man slowly turned to face her, and Sarah gasped in horror. His face was a grotesque mask of decay, his eyes hollow and devoid of life. "I am Delano, the founder of this pizzeria," he whispered, his voice a sinister rasp. "I've been waiting for someone like you." Delano's bony hand extended toward Sarah, and she stumbled backward, her heart pounding. She turned to flee, but the corridor seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions. Panic consumed her as she realized there was no escape from the nightmarish pizzeria. The relentless melody played on, and Sarah's screams joined its haunting chorus. Delano's pizzeria had claimed another victim, and the storm outside raged on, oblivious to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. To this day, the locals speak in hushed tones about the cursed pizzeria, warning newcomers never to enter on a dark and stormy night. Delano's Pizzeria remains a place of dread and mystery, where the music of the damned echoes through the corridors, and those who enter may never find their way out again. Story 3. It was a moonless night in the small, isolated town of Ravenswood. The streets were empty, and a dense fog hung in the air, shrouding the town in an eerie silence. Mary, a young woman with a penchant for late-night studying, found herself hungry and craving a slice of pizza. Ravenswood was notorious for its limited options, and the only place that delivered at this hour was Pete's Pizzeria. She dialed the number and waited anxiously as the phone rang. Finally, a raspy voice answered. "Pete's Pizzeria, how can I help you?" "I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza for delivery, please," Mary said, her voice filled with anticipation. The voice on the other end of the line crackled with static. "Delivery to where?" Mary provided her address, feeling a slight unease at the strange atmosphere surrounding the conversation. The voice confirmed the order and hung up abruptly, leaving Mary with a lingering sense of dread. As she waited in her dimly lit apartment, the minutes stretched into what felt like hours. She glanced out the window, hoping to see the familiar glow of headlights, but the fog outside was impenetrable, swallowing any trace of the outside world. At long last, a faint sound of footsteps on her doorstep roused her from her restless pacing. The delivery had arrived. Mary eagerly flung the door open, expecting to see a cheerful pizza delivery person, but what greeted her was far from ordinary. Standing there was a tall, shadowy figure, draped in a tattered, hooded cloak that concealed their features. The delivery person held out a pizza box, the aroma of fresh, hot pizza wafting from it, but their gloved hand was unnaturally skeletal and claw-like. Mary hesitated, her excitement now overridden by a creeping unease. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. The figure remained silent and still, making no move to accept payment. The gloved hand slowly gestured toward the pizza, urging her to take it. Mary reluctantly did so, her fingers brushing against the cold leather of the gloves. "Enjoy your meal," the figure rasped in a voice that sent a chill down her spine. Back inside her apartment, Mary cautiously opened the pizza box. To her surprise, the pizza was immaculate, perfectly sliced and steaming hot. Her hunger overcame her reservations, and she took a bite. The taste was heavenly, and she couldn't help but devour slice after slice. As Mary ate, the room seemed to grow colder, and the shadows deepened. The pizza box, though seemingly bottomless, never emptied. Panic began to claw at the edges of her mind as she realized that something was terribly wrong. She couldn't stop eating, no matter how much she consumed. Time seemed to blur as Mary continued to devour the never-ending pizza. Hours turned into days, and she was trapped in a never-ending feast. The once delightful taste of pizza had transformed into a sickening torment as her body deteriorated from the excessive consumption. Mary's phone rang, a shrill and distant sound, but she couldn't answer it. Her hands were no longer capable of holding a phone, and her eyesight had dimmed to a blurry haze. She was a prisoner in her own apartment, condemned to an eternity of insatiable hunger. Weeks turned into months, and Mary's existence became a living nightmare. She couldn't remember what sunlight looked like or the feel of fresh air on her skin. Her apartment had transformed into a hellish realm where time had lost all meaning. One fateful night, as Mary struggled to lift another slice to her lips, a flicker of realization crossed her fading consciousness. She had never seen another soul since that ominous delivery. She was utterly alone, trapped in this purgatorial feast. With the last ounce of her strength, Mary mustered the will to push the pizza box away. It slid off the table and crashed to the floor, unleashing a cacophony that echoed through her forsaken apartment. The fog outside her window seemed to thin, and a glimmer of moonlight broke through. In her final moments, Mary knew that her only hope was to resist the never-ending temptation. With a resolve born of desperation, She welcomed the embrace of darkness and allowed herself to succumb. The next morning, the fog over Ravenswood lifted, revealing a town shrouded in an unsettling silence. The apartment where Mary had once lived was empty, the pizza box reduced to a forgotten relic of her torment. In the annals of Ravenswood's dark history, the legend of the midnight slice persists as a cautionary tale, a reminder that insatiable hunger can lead to an eternity of despair, and that some deliveries should never be accepted.